So I'm hearing someone playing flute for 3 seconds and do it again every 15 secs. It started at 1:45 am I guess, and it's still fluting right now. I'm a night owl guy, so I know what happens when it's night and what the sound does. Everything creates. But the sound of flute really creeps me off and give me some vibes. Some sinister is walking around outside the house. All doors and windows are locked, and I also block it with some curtains. Does anyone experience this? A few nights back my wife and I were sitting in our living room of our apartment on the second floor. Around maybe 1:30ish in the morning she looked over and I looked over and saw a small glowing orb that kind of danced around. Maybe a foot off the ground. It couldn't have been larger than maybe 2 inches in diameter. At one point it stopped and kind of pulsated, after which it darted around for maybe a minute, then disappeared. I have no idea what the F#CK it was, but now I think she and I are both pretty freaked out. She looked over at me and asked me as I was about to ask her, "Do you see that?" It appeared to be doing what an animal would do. We thought maybe it was like the ghost of a dog or something. I've had a dog in the past and thought not that this was my dog, but that it just kind of bounced around like a dog would do. We are not crazy, and the fact that we both saw it just makes me question what the fuck exactly did we see. Does anyone have any thoughts on this? Because we are actively considering moving. I have a very strange walking trail encounter with an invisible 2-legged very large thing while walking with my dog. Some of the trail sections have wooded areas alongside of the walking paths. So most of the trail has woods on one side of the path and the park is on the other side of the trail. The wooded area is not very large. I would guess about 300 feet by half a mile. So I don't consider it a forest. I just call it the woods. The wooded area of the park has 3 or 4 small creeks, and I think only one of the creeks has some water. Most of the trees are beautiful and normal tall trees, and some of the trees here and there look like they are dead. There is always people and kids going down there to ride bikes, hang out, and whatever else they do. One day around 4 p.m. I took my female dog, Bertha, for our normal everyday walk. We had just gotten off the car and began our walk. We were probably walking on the trail for about 5 minutes or so when I started feeling weird after a turn. No, not scared or afraid. I started to feel happy and my little pain aches had disappeared. This was very strange because I remember saying to myself inside my head, not out loud. I said, "Wow, I feel good. I feel like a little kid. I feel brand new." It was only about 20 seconds of this young and joyful feeling when all of a sudden, something had let go of a large bush that it was holding onto. The thing sounded like it was intertwined in the bush, like holding on and trying to hide. At the same time of the noise in the bush, Bertha turned towards the bush and started going after it. I had Bertha on a leash and she was dragging me, almost taking me into the woods. I had to hold her back because I couldn't see what was making all that noise. It moved through another tall bush and started stepping heavy with loud thumps. I think it fell when it made it out of the bush area. The thing was only about 15 feet away from us on the other side of the bushes and sounded like 2 very large horses stomping on the ground. I could see the bushes and the grass moving, but I could not see anything. We moved back away from the trail a few feet so I can see a clearing on the other side of the bushes to try to see this thing. I looked right where the sounds of steps were coming from and saw nothing. So I looked down on the ground and I could see where 2 feet were stepping on the tall grass. I remember I said to myself, in my head, "No way, that is not an invisible monster." After I said that, I heard something I will never forget. The thing started making loud T-Rex stomps. Then I said out loud, "That sounds like T-Rex." From the movies I recall I could feel the stomps on the ground. Bertha and I were just looking into the woods at this sound. I can feel my eardrums shaking bad, and both eardrums felt like busted speakers. In my head I said, "It's trying to blow my eardrums." The T-Rex stomps lasted about 10 or 15 seconds. Then the sound stopped. It just turned off like a light switch. I have no idea if it jumped into something or it vanished. It is strange because after all that I still felt happy with no worry or fear at all. Just very curious. I really wanted to see it. On the way home I remember thinking, any other day I would have been afraid and ran away from it. I heard this thing 3 or 4 times in the following days. In another section of woods, I could hear someone heavy walking on leaves just inside the tree line about 30 feet away in the woods alongside me and Bertha. I would hear it and I would stop without turning to it. And it would take a step or two and it would stop. I turned around a few times to see nothing because it wasn't moving. I did this a few times to make sure. I would tell myself, in my head, if a person stays on trail they have no permission to take you. I think one time, I heard his steps in the woods next to me. I said to myself in my head, I think it wants me to make a mistake and go into the woods, towards it. After I said that I never heard it again. I am sure it can hear what I am thinking. Just a few weeks ago I had seen something very strange related to this thing. Bertha and I were walking in the same part of the trail only about 100 feet away from my first encounter where the bushes were. I stopped to look into the woods at this view into the woods. I was standing still looking past the trees. How the area was covered in a few inches of light green grass. I was looking kinda downhill how the woods go down in and around the creek down there. I said to myself, it looks beautiful, the trees, the color of greens and the sunlight and shadow. It looks like a postcard, perfect. About 2 or 3 seconds after I thought that, while I was just looking down at this area of woods, I saw a big human-shaped blur move between 2 trees about 80 feet away. I saw it for a split second. It was big. Maybe 10 feet tall. Big head, big wide muscle shoulders, and I remember his big left leg. I remember his left knee and big muscle above it, the laterals. I could see the thick shiny hair on the leg. Yes, this thing looked exactly like the Predator from the movie when he is cloaked. It is very weird how my brain was able to capture this image. My memory surprised me. His shoulders, his head, and the side of his back was reflecting the woods between him and me. It looked like a male, not a female. I was surprised just like him. In my opinion, I think he took off running because he thought I was sensing that he was in the area. But I had no idea he was there. I think he knows Bertha can't pick up on him if he hides a little farther away from the trail. I am very cautious when we go walking near woods now. I also tell people where I am going and carry a few extra things hidden on me. I have no idea why this thing got so close to me or what its intentions were. And I also don't know why it ran away from me those times. Was there something or someone behind me that startled it? These occurrences were a very incredible time of my life. It changed me in a good way. I often think, I don't know, but maybe that's why dogs are on this planet. To help us and pick up on these invisible things when they get too close. Always be happy and do the things you love doing in your life. Have no worries and certainly no fear. I hope my story helps people to be alert and careful out there in this world. Been looking through the internet for someone who's had a similar experience for years but have never found anything close. When I was 10 or so, my parents took me and my 2 brothers to the water park a few hours away from where we lived. We sat in the back seats and were watching Brother Bear 2 on the little TV screens that strapped to the back of the front seats. Suddenly, a black shadow figure in a top hat and holding a cane comes into view on the screen from the left to right and is dancing as the movie plays. He dances around for about 15 to 20 seconds or so and then walks out of the screen. Me and my brothers were confused given we'd seen the movie before, so we backed it to before the figure appeared, and this time there was no figure at all. Our parents never saw, so they could never really understand or really believe us when we told them it was weird as shit. Can anyone shine some light or help me understand what occurred that day? Was it a paranormal encounter? Something weird on the DVD? Appreciate any opinions. I was alone one night. Just for info, I live in Kentucky, so I was just sitting on my bed on my laptop when I hear something banging at my window. I look over, then I see this figure, but I'm not sure how because it's night. It kinda just feels darker than dark. Knowing I live in the middle of the woods and no one lives near me and the town is a few miles away, I'm scared shitless. Me in fight or flight. I chose flight. I locked my doors, grabbed my handgun by my bed and listened for any sounds. The worst thing was there was nothing at all. Me still being scared, I won't move for a while, trying to figure out who or what would bang on my window like that, then not do anything. So just to be safe, I walk around my house to be safe, but nothing, not even a footprint. That's the only reason I'm here, because I don't know what to do. Things have been going on around my place too. I've tried sage, but it didn't seem to help. I will try to come back on here for updates, but for now I'm just asking for help. My husband and I, 32F and 34M, just purchased our first home in a small, very old historic town in southern Michigan. It's an old Victorian house that was built in 1900. A few months ago, we had horrendous ice storms throughout the Midwest and we lost power. My husband's cousin, we'll call her Sarah, lives across the street from us and a few doors down. Our home sits on a hill overlooking her street, which is a long, hilly, historic street. Sarah is a single mom who has her kids 50% of the time, and on this particular evening they were with their dad. She sent me a message saying how she felt uneasy being in the dark by herself. So my husband decided he would walk over and go get her so she could come stay at our house. My husband has these professional remote control cars that he collects as a hobby, and some of them have working headlights that are pretty powerful. He decided to take one with him since basically the entire town was pitch black. As he was crossing the street, my two kids and I, 8F, 6M, looked out to watch him out of my second-story bedroom window. The light from his RC car was lighting up the whole neighborhood as he walked, and we were laughing about it. Then I saw something strange. As he got to the other side of the street, I saw the shadow of a tall, 6 feet plus slender male figure walking next to him, but a few paces behind him. I said to the kids, "Who's that guy walking with Daddy?" At this point, he had walked in front of a large tree and we couldn't see him for a second. My daughter said, "What guy?" So I said, "Hang on. Wait until he comes out from behind the tree. You'll see him." A few seconds later he emerges from behind the tree, and sure enough, about a second or two after that, there's the male that I had just seen. I looked at my daughter and said, "See? There he is." She said, "Oh yeah. Who is that?" We watched as the two continued together down the street, trying to figure out who he was. It was pretty odd considering we had just moved here from over an hour away and didn't know a soul besides his cousin and her kids. But I thought maybe a neighbor was admiring his RC car or was maybe outside discussing the power outage. He came back with his cousin and we all chatted for a while and went to bed. As we were getting ready to lay down, I remembered the man and said, "Oh yeah. Who was that walking with you?" He looked at me puzzled and said, Sarah." I said, "No. On your way to her house." "The tall guy. He was kind of built like, insert name of a friend of his with a similar build. he looked at me like I was legitimately Coca for Cocoa Puffs. He said nobody was walking with me. I was so certain, I still am, that I saw this man that I could not stop talking about it. I kept describing what he looked like and my husband kept assuring me that the power was out. The neighborhood was silent, and he would have surely heard someone walking behind him. The next day early in the morning, about 6 hours after this incident, I randomly woke up and was just kind of gazing out of my bedroom window. Out of nowhere, the tree my husband had been walking under when I saw the man following him began crackling and basically split in half, dropping a monstrous tree limb right where my husband had walked a few hours earlier. The ice had become too heavy for the tree to hold itself up anymore. The limb that fell was so large that it surely would have killed anyone who was in its trajectory. I can't be sure, but I'd like to think that whatever entity was walking with my husband that night was protecting him. Or was it something else? I guess we'll never know for sure. But I've never been so sure that I saw something that wasn't really there, and the fact that my daughter saw it too makes it that much more creepy.
Looking for something to meet your photonic need? Redlight has laser diodes, remote-controlled rooms with lasers mounted on them, USB chargeable laser pens, rechargeable lithium-ion batteries, high-powered lasers that can ignite matches, cat toys. Hell, if you got enough money, they'd probably sell you a Jewish space laser. Welcome to Radlight. Point with precision, present with confidence. Visit us at radlight.dev. Tell them the Atomic Shaman Sweat Lodge sent you.
Mosey on down to the Atomic Shaman Trading Post. We have t-shirts, decals, refrigerator magnets and other swag for sale. What better way to show your support for the show? Our merch can only be found on t.pub/lit/Atomic Shaman Trading Post. Like, share and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to ring the notification bell. You can follow us on Twitter at Motel and RV Park. Catch the live streams on Rumble. Listen to text-to-speech stories on Atomic Shaman TTS on YouTube.